two, one, two, three.
Hello and welcome to Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. I'm here today with Gabriella da Silva Carr. She is Director of Artistic Producing at Civic Ensemble. So I will start by asking you, what is Civic Ensemble?
Civic Ensemble is a community engaged theater company here in Ithaca, New York. We create original plays and theatrical opportunities rooted in our local community that explore the questions, challenges, and dreams of our community.
You have suggested that it is not an entirely new idea, that it has a predecessor.
Yes. So right now, the project that I'm here talking about with you today is part of our core programming called the community-based play. And maybe some folks who are listening have previously seen one of our community-based plays or have participated in some devising sessions themselves. But the community-based play is a program where we create an original play about a theme or question relevant to our local community. And previous plays have included themes such as health as healing, the climate crisis, policing, education, parenting, and housing, particularly the rental market and economy, and a lack of affordability, was something that was explored in a previous community-based play almost about 10 years ago.
And so housing is, I think you said, again, what you want to explore
Yes,
now, 10 years later.
we had spent a few months at within Civic Ensemble thinking about what are the things coming up when people are talking in the grocery store? What's coming up when we read some of our local newspapers and online journals in our community? What are the themes that seem to be popping up? And within our personal lives and what we were reading, uh, in terms of what was in our local media, there was just so much about housing. And whether that is what housing is being developed and who is that being developed for, what's the financial cost to the community? Like, for example, like articles discussing, will this project get a tax abatement that then affects what is the property taxes going towards our school district when we know we have a deficit budget, right? Um, you know, these were coming up in addition to thinking about all the policy that was being explored about a year ago around the encampments in Ithaca and how are we going to address the homelessness crisis, the unhoused crisis here in Ithaca? That's a direct result of the lack of affordable housing options. But it just felt like the idea of home housing and who is home accessible to in Ithaca was a question that came up for us, as well as what does it mean to be a good neighbor?
Oh, that's an interesting part of it. Well, you did at one point talk about some other company that had existed in the past that did some similar things.
Oh, yes. I had mentioned that we are an applied theater company or a community engaged theater company, and that comes from a lineage of theaters throughout America for years now, having done the work before Civic Ensemble ever existed. Civic was founded in 2012 here in Ithaca, but there are companies that pre-existed that did their work in relationship with community members side by side with theater artists. And one of those theater companies is Cornerstone Theater in Los Angeles. They do work that's similar to Civic in that they do work with communities that are specific to their experiences of what they're facing in that moment.
So this play will be about Well, will it be about housing or homelessness or both?
Well, we don't know yet what the play will be about, but this current phase is a discovery phase of trying to hear, to elicit, to explore the largest range of experiences that folks are having in Tompkins County around housing, as well as the resources available for navigating housing in Tompkins.
I see.
So we're really in a listening phase where we're trying to hear what is the personal experiences folks are having as they're trying to access housing, whether that's emergency housing, whether that's long-term housing, whether that's in the rental market, or is that in the buying market, or are we talking about folks who are trying to just access basic essential needs? Um, we're trying to hear the largest experience to listen to where is there a story that needs to be amplified for us to better understand this issue. Maybe it's us, and our goal is to try to figure out what is that unheard story that needs to be uplifted. And then we'll move forward with then thinking about, okay, so if this is the narrative that we think people need to be aware of or develop more consciousness around, then what's going to be the method, the process, or the type of play that we need to create to communicate that message?
So at this stage, you are, in essence, interviewing people, right?
It's a form, yeah. I mean, in our sessions, it's much more creative than a traditional interview, but there's opportunities throughout the entire sessions that we hold to share personal experiences and to speak from one's own truth.
And I think you've used the word workshops before
Yes,
for
yes, we are calling
yours.
them workshops. And we're currently about to have our third workshop of the series this upcoming Sunday. Right now, we're going to have 5 sessions and hopefully offer some kind of potential sharing from what we've created in these sessions or what we've explored. And we're meeting at the First Presbyterian Church in Ithaca, 315 North Cayuga Street. And we're meeting on Sundays right now from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Say that time again.
Yes, we're meeting on Sunday afternoons from 3 o'clock p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Okay. And you gave the address of the Presbyterian church, but I know that there's more than one entrance.
Yes, so we actually encourage folks to enter on the entrance. That's the green doors on the side of the church, which then have a direct staircase coming down to Dobbs Hall, which is the room that we're in.
So the side entrance, so to
The
speak.
side entrance, yes, that says, I believe there's a sign for Open Doors English
Uh-huh.
on that door.
Yes, I've been there many times.
It's a great space. I encourage folks to, if they have an event they need to hold in the community, First Presbyterian Church is very welcoming.
And perhaps you could say more about what actually goes on at those workshops.
Yeah, so I think I want to first spotlight some of the facilitation team or who are the civic staff members that you might meet at one of these sessions. I would be a familiar face at the sessions. I'm there at all of them, but I am not one of the lead facilitators. I'm a support staff member. But our lead facilitators include Amy Heffron, Sarah Plotkin, Michael Rhines, and Carly Robinson, who are all Civic Ensemble artists and staff members. And each week, they take turns leading in a team of two, a series of theatrical activities that might include playing theater games, doing improvisation activities. Like, for example, this upcoming week, we're going to explore power dynamics within housing, and we're going to do some role playing of some circumstances that someone might find themselves in. Like, for example, a situation between a tenant and a landlord. And how do you advocate? How do you find compromise when there's conflict? How do you try to come together when you both want different things, right? And you each have something you're trying to get from the other person. And how do you have them listen to you? How do you get heard? And how do you practice for doing that? Is and then talking about what's our experience of getting to practice that. We might create short scenes or use our bodies to tell stories through physical movement or creating images or tableaus, as they're called. We might create monologues or some poetry together. We might sit in a circle and do a story circle, which is a tradition that we have taken from John O'Neill and Junebug Productions in the South that started during the civil rights movement, and they continue to do that work today. And we practice the tradition of like telling a story for one's own experience, where you witness and hold the story of another person and just let it sit with you. Just actively listen, and see where it takes you. See if it inspires you to tell a story you weren't expecting to tell, around a prompt that's given by the facilitators. Those are just some small examples of the kind of activities one might expect to participate in, coming to a civic ensemble housing and theater workshop.
I take it some of this role playing or storytelling starts from prompts or questions. So perhaps you could share some of those questions.
Absolutely. So, for example, in our first session, we did a story circle, that tradition I shared of sitting in a circle and telling one's own story. And we shared the question, share a story of a time in which you felt at home or didn't at all. And so that allows someone to tell a story, right, in different directions or a spectrum of experience. And we and in that story circle, things went in different directions. Some people went very literal, some people went more conceptual. Home is not always a physical place, home can also be people, or a community. And that was like a theme that came out of that session. Whereas our most recent session, we did a mapping activity that was map your housing journey in Ithaca. Some people took it very literal. Like for myself, I drew little houses of every little place I've lived in Ithaca and the name of the street. And we then had some prompt questions being like, where is a place where you felt joy? Where's a place you lived where you faced struggle? Where is a place you live that you wish you didn't have to leave? And some people took it much more figuratively. One of our facilitators, used the example that she grew up in Ithaca, so that was like living on an island, but then moving away from Ithaca for, 12 years coming back, and then coming back to the rental market was like being thrown in the ocean and having to find her way. So the questions really allow you to use your creativity around how you want to express yourself and how much do you want to reveal or not reveal about your own story. And so, like, the workshop has value, like, for the person doing the workshop to have an experience of getting to explore their own experiences, reflect deeper within themselves, in addition to contributing to, like, what might be a collective whole of a final theater project of some kind.
I think you've shared a couple of questions. Maybe there are others you want to share? Questions people might encounter in future workshops.
Yeah, we each week take come up with a plan and then reflect on what happened and then come up with a new plan. So we've only now planned the next session coming up this Sunday. So it's really limitless what might potentially come up in other sessions. But it's also influenced by who's showing up in the space and what kind of experiences are we hearing. But I also want to say that if there's someone interested in speaking about their experience of housing in Tompkins County who can't come to the workshops, we're also open to doing individual interviews or meeting folks at our office at another time in order to make sure that everyone's experiences who want to be shared are able to be held. And folks can contact me either via email, which is Gabriella, Gabriella, at civicensemble.org, or folks can reach out on my work cell phone number, which is 607-622-0303, because we want to ensure that the largest spectrum of stories can be witnessed. And we really want to be able to hear the fullest experience of what folks are experiencing as they're facing this housing crisis that has been named in Tompkins.
So it sounds like you don't exactly think of people and then of individuals and then invite them, but rather how do people get invited? You've
Yeah.
told the
Um,
mechanics, but not exactly the selection.
Yes, it's anyone is invited. Currently, we've put out some publications on social media. We've listed on Human Services listserv. I'm going to be reaching out and trying to put out some media in other ways, but it's really about putting out an invitation and seeing who responds to that invitation. But there's no one excluded from being heard or welcomed. And we also have some folks like last week, two of our staff members went to Loaves and Fishes and made an announcement at Loaves and Fishes inviting folks to come. We don't serve a full meal, but we do have light refreshments available. Usually you can find a little veggies, a little fruit, maybe some cheese and crackers, maybe some candy as well. Sparkling water or some coffee, in addition to like the company and connection of being in community with other folks, sharing experiences together.
I see. If you come to the point where you feel there's this community in Ithaca and you've brought in a lot of people from it, and there's another community in Ithaca and you've brought in a bunch of people from it, but there's some other community and you haven't brought in any people from it. Do you have any concepts about that, plans about that?
It's always, as much as we can, I think community partnership is really important. So, because oftentimes it's hard to get people to come to you. It's easier to go to people where they already have built trust. So we are first doing these workshops and seeing who shows up. And then depending on if there's voices or experiences we haven't heard that we're trying to seek, then reaching out to some of our community partners about whether or not can we host something in their space and have their folks come.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a good way to do it. Also, I am wondering, do you think the play will ultimately will affect any government policies, either by critiquing current policies or suggesting different ones?
At this point, I can't guarantee what the play is going to do because we're just in that listening discovery phase. But I think there is questions about, do when we do this work, there's always a hope of can we envision alternatives? Can we envision what we don't already have that might better serve our community? And can we dream together a little bit without thinking about scarcity, but rather in abundancy, what would we have if we could have anything we wanted to have? And that's certainly part of the work of what we do at Civic Ensemble, and part of the goal of community-based play is trying to dream up um, some solutions potentially to what we're facing, but we're not in the phase to say, we'll absolutely do that. We won't, can't say for certain. And there's, we've discussed, is there a possibility of looking more at policy? Do we want to be examining that? Because that's, policy is a little bit of a different direction than necessarily highlighting people's experiences, or you can choose to do both, right? It depends on what we decide we want the ultimate goal of the play to be. Is it about informing people or educating them about other people's experiences or perspectives? Is it about questioning, challenging, or having a call to action around government or policy? I think we haven't decided what direction the play will go in, but there are definitely all potential directions that we might go in.
Well, of course, I'm personally very much into questions of policy, and so is Ithaca DSA. And in fact, this year, Ithaca DSA decided that housing was to be our concentration. Although then we said the tactic for us is electoral work. So that very much says go to government policy. But are there experiences elsewhere that speak to this question.
Can you explain what you mean by that, Teresa?
Okay, you suggested when we talked before that that there was some sort of, you said Los Angeles, uh, that there had been some sort of analogous group there that had actually created changes, or their work led to changes, let's put it that way.
Um, I don't think the work in Cornerstone has led to well, there was a theater company in New York City that I don't know if they ended up actually changing policy, but they did a legislative theater piece that was critiquing Cuomo's housing policies at the time. And they used a form of theater called legislative theater, which is part of Theater via Press, which is an interactive uh, theater model that examines policy. Um, so that, certainly is like inspiration to consider. The LA piece, I think, is separate.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, once again, you have said that you want to, I think, get the widest possible representation of people in this community. So perhaps you could go over again how the various ways people can join in.
Absolutely. So, I also, before I repeat the details of the workshops, I also just want to mention like what are the next steps after the workshop, because that might help people understand like what are they contributing to potentially. So after the workshop series, the Civic Ensemble artists will develop a new play inspired by the learning from what we discover over these next couple of weeks. We hope to develop with the folks who have participated to collaborate together in the development of what the next steps would be. And we hope to follow up with whoever comes to the sessions about what next steps there are and how they might be able to participate in those next steps. Our hope is that this spring and summer we do continued research and artistic visioning, with then in the summer of 2025, winter of 2026, moving into actual play development and writing with some type of sharing with community, with the hope of an actual new play and full production in spring 2026, fall 2026. Um, and so our hope is that like this is a starting point. Maybe we can think of it almost like an incubator for a much bigger project. Um, that's really, a year and a half timeline. But folks can start immediately participating by joining our housing and theater workshop sessions on Sundays, happening at 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. at the First Presbyterian Church in downtown Ithaca. We encourage folks to enter from the side entrance, the green door. Um, we encourage everyone to attend, and if you can attend multiple sessions, even better. We will be meeting there this Sunday as well, which is the 23rd, as well as March 2nd and March 9th.
Okay, so it's always Sunday afternoons,
Yes.
and you don't have to register in advance or anything like that.
You do not need to register in advance, though. If someone were had ADA accommodation, such as needing to use the lift, or needing to have a service animal, it would be preferred to reach out ahead of time to ensure that we can accommodate.
Okay. Have you had service animals in these sessions? Perhaps for other plays?
Um, we did have a service animal one time arrive. I did have someone inquire about an ESA pet, but they made the decision that their ESA was not ready for that type of community setting. And so the animal did not end up
Uh,
coming to this session, but I did have someone inquire
uh-huh.
about the possibility. And First Presbyterian Church does allow service dogs.
Okay. Because probably the dogs will be okay in any case.
Yes.
And nobody is trying to bring cats.
No, no one's tried to bring a cat. I don't know when the person mentioned, can I bring an ESA? I was like, "Oh, I don't what kind of ESA?" Because, I've seen emotional support mice before. Um, people have a whole spectrum of animals that provide support. So you can't make assumptions.
Okay, and maybe one last time, give your email and the phone number.
Yes, and also can I include the pitch for the workshop, like what the
Sure, sure.
So, just to another reminder of our project overview, we're inviting adults 18 and up who have ever had anxiety around your own personal housing circumstances to join us for these weeks of exploration workshops, whether that's loss of stability, major life event change, loss of physical home and space, lack of safety, or just uncertainty about the future of your housing. We welcome you to share your personal stories and experiences navigating housing and the resources is available in our community. Um, we are meeting on Sundays at 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. This Sunday, February 23rd, Sunday, March 2nd, and Sunday, March 9th. And that will be held at the First Presbyterian Church in downtown Ithaca.
Thank you, Gabriella da Silva Carr. And this has been Ithaca DSA Presents. I'm Theresa Alt. Thanks for watching.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.